question for John. What percentage of the Belfast Police participated in what you called the mutiny? What induced them to participate? And in view of the strict disciplinary code in existence at that time, why only one man dismissed?
I've forgotten how many were dismissed, but it was certainly more than one. I think it was 3 or 4. I think the figures are actually in my book, and you'll be glad to hear I haven't brought a whole pile of books which you have to buy, but it's in my book, but by recollection, it can reasonably be described as over half of them. The circumstances, the principal circumstances, I think, which drove them to take the action that they did were oppressive bad management. Things like they were taken off extra duties 1 minute before they were entitled to earn any overtime. And I mean, these were men from all over Ireland, as we've already mentioned. That was the nature of the RIC, and the wages for a constable were not that generous. And he had to find his own accommodation often. The cost of living was high. They had very authoritarian officers who did not listen to their complaints. Now, there's no doubt about it. There is then a strand, and this is particularly true in letters written by Barrett, who used the Irish News as his mode of communicating. And indeed, the first news of the police mutiny, an earlier meeting where they knocked down the chief inspector who tried to break up a meeting in a room, and the police authorities in Dublin Castle denied that anything had happened at all. But there was an Irish News reporter in the room who'd been let in by the dissident police, who reported the entire proceedings, and this then caused a scandal. I was going to say that Barrett and 1 or 2 of the other writers show a clear sympathy with the civilian strikers, and also begin to refer to how we've been used all over Ireland to carry out oppressive acts, to drive people off their land, and to do the landlords beckoning. And of course, they had been used to deal with land agitation in the far west. The composition of those involved in the mutiny is quite interesting. It was across the sectarian divide. It was a minority of Protestant constables who were involved, but quite a significant minority. And it's interesting that one Conservative councillor, a Unionist councillor, speaks up on behalf of the dissidents. So that's sort of a reasonable complexion, I think, of the mutiny. And they were, of course, persuaded by the Labour leaders. I mean, you're quite right to say there was a rigid disciplinary system. Certainly, writing angry letters to the Irish News was a disciplinary offence. And on the night when they seized control of the barracks, well, clearly they were way beyond the edge of any disciplinary code, and yet largely on the advice of the Labour leaders, they agreed to take no further action but to send a petition to Dublin Castle, and to give Dublin Castle 7 days to reply, which in the circumstances they got themselves into was hardly the best tactical strategy. The Labour leaders had nothing to do, or almost nothing to do, with provoking the police mutiny, and they were somewhat aghast when it occurred, because they could see this wider law and order dimension that would be involved, and indeed, hence you get the 6,000 troops rushed to Belfast.